The Ted movies. As a kid, I thought these were comedy gold, and it makes sense. I mean, it's a talking teddy bear who does inappropriate and vulgar stuff. This is comedy gold. These movies were pretty successful, so they ended up making things like merchandise in mobile games because it was 2012, and they ended up even making a show pretty recently, a Ted show, and I heard it was pretty good. I haven't watched it, but we're not focusing on that today. Today, we are watching the original Ted movie and seeing if it still holds up. Is it still funny? Ted's premise is pretty basic. It revolves around a man named John whose childhood wish was for his teddy bear, Ted, to come to life. And that wish was granted. And we see how much John is kind of messing up his life by living with a talking teddy bear. Despite the movie being called Ted, it kind of mainly focuses on John and his relationship. In the pickle he's in, trying to pick between his lifelong childhood best friend teddy bear or his girlfriend. John's girlfriend, Lori, kind of views John as a man-child. He hasn't grown up yet, and he's stuck with his old childhood things, and he hasn't left it in the past. It shows you that Mark Wahlberg has everyday struggles, like leaving his childhood things in the past. He's just like you and me in a way, even though sometimes you can just get lost in those eyes, those pecs. John kind of realizes how fast his life is flying by ahead of him. He feels pressured to make a lot of decisions, one of them being choosing between his love life and his childhood. You know, this might make it seem like it's a really deep movie. This is Ted we're talking about.
Seems pretty ballsy.
There is a shit on my floor!
Well, or is the floor on the shit?
So yes, while it is mainly unserious and kind of vulgar, at least there was sort of a heartfelt message there, which is an approach that isn't really seen too much in modern Seth MacFarlane work. While John's dealing with his love life, Ted's balancing the life of post-fame irrelevancy. Ted was a big star in the 80s, but then over time, people just stopped caring, which is weird because he's a talking teddy bear. I mean, I would care. You know, while I did say nobody cared about him, he just wasn't in the public spotlight. But there were two deranged fans that kidnapped him, but that doesn't happen until like really late in the film. We'll talk about that later, but let's talk about how great this cast was. Mark Wahlberg and Mila Kunis did a great job, but Seth especially did a great job. He played alongside nothing and still did a great job. He does that Seth MacFarlane thing where he has that slow but oddly relatable dialogue from here and there. Also, when it comes to like pop culture references and jokes, I feel like Seth MacFarlane is always top tier. Most of the time, the pop culture references are top tier. Other times, he'll just name a random celebrity nobody's ever heard of. Or maybe I'm just too young or uncultured. Going into the movie, I thought Ted's character was just going to be like some sort of dumb gag, but it's not that in the slightest. He has a huge impact on most of the moves made. Most of the bad decisions are made by John, and then Ted has to find ways to get John out of them. Most of the time, it was Ted helping John get back with Lori after he's had like chance after chance. The good thing about John is that they make sure that he's a bum, but he's a lovable bum. He keeps trying to make things work, but he always ends up making impulsive decisions that he regrets. I saw some people criticizing Mila Kunis' character, but I don't see it. When she gets mad at John, yeah, you feel bad for him, but most of the time, she gets mad and it's justified. Like, let's just leave my girlfriend at a party because Flash Gordon's here. Well, okay, that is justified. It's frackin' Flash Gordon. The only kind of bad thing about her character is at the end when she lets Ted stay, because it's kind of a point where you're like, okay, then what was the point of this entire movie? To make a sequel. Oh yeah, Ted 2 coming to a theater near you. They actually did that, yes. That was very much influenced. Also, when it comes to the acting, there were a lot of cool cameos and kind of weird cameos. I mean, you had Patrick Warburton, the voice of Joe Swanson, and Ryan Reynolds in a relationship. Great to see. I had to do a double take and see if that really was Ryan Reynolds because he doesn't say a word the entire film. Another side character is Laurie's boss, who is just like always hitting on her, and he pretty much plays the role as John's enemy for most of the movie. And just like any other boss from a movie, he wasn't pretentious or weird at all.
It's Lance Armstrong's nut. I had it freeze-dried and bronzed.
But probably the most important side character is Donnie the villain. He plays kind of like a psycho, introverted, crazy guy role. He's the guy who kidnaps Ted, and he's a super fan of Ted. And there's also a scene of him dancing while drinking from a straw. He would end up tearing Ted apart, which would ultimately kill Ted until Laurie put him back together, and the day is saved. We can make a sequel. When it comes to comedy, what I found funniest about this movie was, the witty remarks that Ted would make or all the other characters would make, as opposed to like the huge drawn out gags. I also thought the concept of John being obsessed with Flash Gordon, who's like a superhero, I think, at a grown age, I thought that was funny too. Another scene I found funny was the party scene, and when they were just listing off white trash names. The animation for this movie is great. Some of the best CGI we've ever seen still to this day. Mark did such a good job acting that sometimes you forget that he's pretty much talking to nothing. This is kind of unrelated, but while they were promoting the movie, I guess Ted made a guest appearance on Jimmy Kimmel, and I'm just imagining Jimmy sitting there talking to an empty chair. But pretty much all of the movie, you can't even tell. It's easy to forget that Mark is just talking to a CGI teddy bear, which is kind of incredible. Ted's design in itself too, I just thought was very cool. It's pretty simple, but also just pretty iconic and noticeable. Overall, I think Ted ages very well when it comes to the humor, acting, and writing, and animation especially. Ted is some of Seth MacFarlane's best work. It's vulgar and goofy, but it's also grounded and heartfelt, which is where you see Seth MacFarlane shine the most. It kind of reminds you of like the early seasons of Family Guy. Ted is a certified hood classic. Ted 2, on the other hand, I haven't watched it. So, I've heard great things about it. No, I haven't. Comment down below, should I watch Ted 2? Anyways, thanks for tuning in.
And Shireen's pretty ballsy.
There is a shit on my floor!
Well, or is the floor on the shit, is what Kicker